Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Radha Madhava ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 29, the talks between Narada and King Vrishnabarhi, text number 72. Garbe balepya paushkalyat ekadasha vidam tadam lingam na drishyate yuna kuhvam chandramaso yatam garbe balepya paushkalyat ekadasha vidam tadam lingam na drishyate yuna kuhvam chandramaso yatam garbe balepya paushkalyat ekadasha vidam tadam lingam na drishyate yuna kuhvam chandramaso yatam
Garbhe balepya pusakalya ekadasha vidam tada lingam na drishyate yunam
chandramaso yatam. Someone else? Okay, Garbe in the womb, Balye in boyhood, Api also, Abaushkalyat because of immaturity, Ekadasha the 10 senses and the mind, Vidam in the form of Tada at that time, Lingam the subtle body or false ego, Na not, Drishyate is visible, Yunaha of a youth, Kuhvam during the dark moon night, Chandramasaha the moon, Yata as. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shiva Prabhupada. Narada Muni speaks to King Vrishnabarhi. When one is a youth, all the 10 senses and the mind are completely visible. However, in the mother's womb or in the boyhood state, the sense organs and the mind remain covered. Just as the full moon is covered by the darkness of the dark moon night. Purport. When a living entity is within the womb, his gross body, the 10 sense organs, and the mind are not fully developed. At such a time, the objects of the senses do not disturb him. In a dream, A young man may experience the presence of a young woman because at that time the senses are active. Because of undeveloped senses, a child or boy will not see a young woman in his dreams. The senses are active in youth even when one dreams, and although there may be no young woman present, the senses may act and there may be a seminal discharge, nocturnal emission. The activities of the subtle and gross bodies depend on how developed conditions are. The example of the moon is very appropriate. On a dark moon night, the full shining moon is still present, but it appears not to be present due to conditions. Similarly, the senses of the living entity are there, but they only become active when the gross body and the subtle body are developed. Unless the senses of the gross body are developed, they will not act on the subtle body. Similarly, because of the absence of desires in the subtle body, there may be no development in the gross body. And the verse once again, Garbe balepya paushkalyat ekadasha vidam tada lingam nadrishyate yuna kukhvam chandramaso yata. When one is a youth, all the 10 senses and the mind are completely visible. However, in the mother's womb or in the boyhood state, the sense organs and the mind remain covered, just as the full moon is covered by the darkness of the dark moon night. Om Gyana Timiramnasya Gyananjana Shalakya Chakshurumrutanana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachanam Pangum Nangayati Girinat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Guroti Natharinam. So this verse and purport, they reflect traditional classical Vaishnava understanding of the human development, which is rooted in the metaphysical condition of the soul, the subtle body, and the gross body. These are teachings which are especially elaborated in the texts such as Srimad Bhagavatam, and as we see here in the instructions and the revelations of Narada Muni to King Prachinabarhi. This verse uses a metaphor of the moon on a dark night. There is a comparison of the full moon on the dark night of Amavasya, dark moon night, and this metaphor emphasizes the potential versus expression, not creation versus destruction. Which means that the moon is always present, even when it is not seen in the dark moon night. And its invisibility, the invisibility of the moon, it is due to certain conditions, not to non-existence. In a similar way, the 10 senses, the 5 knowledge-acquiring senses and the 5 working senses, and also the mind, they are inherent potentials of the spiritual soul. They may be present, but they may be inactive and undeveloped. And as explained here, the development determines the manifestation. What is the ontological framework which is behind the information given in this verse and the purport? This explanation rests on the understanding the 3-layer model of the manifestation of the personality, which is common in the Vedanta philosophy. The first is the Atman, or the self, which is the eternal the eternal spiritual being, the soul. Then there is the coverings of the subtle body, which is called linga sharira, and it comprises of the mind, manas, intelligence, buddhi, and ego, false ego or ahankara. And this subtle body is a storehouse of impressions. And then there is the gross body or stula sharira, which comprises of the physical senses and the other organs. And basically, this gross body is an accumulation of food. So this purport argues that in the womb or in the early childhood in boyhood, these gross instruments, they are undeveloped, and therefore, even though the subtle body exists, it cannot fully express itself in the gross body. And then in youth, when both the subtle body and the gross organs are sufficiently developed, then sense activity becomes pronounced, even in the dreams, as it is explained in the purport. And we can see here that there is a interplay of causes. On the one side, the subtle desires, they influence the gross development, and on the other hand, the gross development allows the subtle desires to manifest externally, outwardly. And this purport uses the example of a youth which is experiencing erotic dreams and nocturnal emission occurring during the night, even without external stimuli. And what is philosophically intended here is that the senses, they can act internally even without. They can act internally through the subtle impressions, which means that the sensory experience does not require the physical presence of the objects, and this their activation depends on the developmental maturity, and also from the modern scientific perspective, this corresponds roughly to the hormonal changes in puberty and the activation of sexual cognition and imagery. So while this metaphysical explanation differs, the observation about the development stages corresponds to the common biology. And in this passage, which we read in the verse and the purport, there are many philosophical strong points, and it gives a very clear developmental model, and it provides an explanation why children, for example, they lack certain desires, why in the youth people experience intensified sensory agitation, and also why internal experience can occur without external stimuli. And here the emphasis is given on the conditioning, which suggests that the disturbance, the agitation of the senses is not something intrinsic to the soul, and it depends on the development of the body. And this is supported by this metaphor of the analogy of the moon, which captures this latent capacity very beautifully. It is important to recognize these philosophical points, assumptions, which are given in this passage. The first thing that assumes are that the senses are subtle faculties, first of all. They are not merely biological organs. The second is that the mind is also ontologically a real substance, which is distinct from the physical brain. And the last thing that it suggests is that the development is not just physical, but it's also karmically structured. It's connected with the karmic substance. And these claims, they are not derived just experientially, but they are based on the metaphysical statements of the Vedanta philosophy. So in the purport, it is said that because of the absence of desires in the subtle body, there may be no development in the gross body, which suggests that two directional causes from subtle body to gross development, and from gross development leading to the activation of the subtle experience. And this is a little bit sophisticated, but it gives rise to certain philosophical questions. For example, why, if these subtle impressions or samskaras, if they exist from previous past lives, why would a child not experience these sexual dreams? And also, are these impressions or samskaras in a dormant state until the hormonal maturation? And also, does biology condition karma's expression? And the answer of these questions in the traditional Vedanta teachings is that yes, it's true that karma unfolds through material conditions. But also, apart of that, there is a deeper spiritual understanding, spiritual reading, which suggests that beyond the physiology, there is this simple sense agitation is not natural, is not intrinsic to the soul. It arises due to the bodily development and conditioning, and therefore, for this reason, it can be transcended. Just as the moon is not affected by darkness, so the self, the soul is not affected by sense activity. And if we compare these statements of Bhagavatam and the Vedanta philosophy with modern neuroscience, both the Bhagavatam's explanation and the modern neuroscience agree that the children, they lack full sexual and sensory activation, and that the puberty brings these intensified desires and dreams. But the difference between the two viewpoints is that the Vedanta says that these subtle faculties and impressions, they already exist and they can be expressed when the body matures. While neuroscience says that hormonal and brain development are the causes, they produce these experiences. In short, the one sees the consciousness as primary and using the body, while the other sees the brain as primary and generating the mind. And this analogy and these philosophical points can also be considered through the both prominent views in philosophy, the Vaishnava view and the Advaita view. For example, the Vaishnava view, which is presented here in Srimad Bhagavatam, according to it, the individual soul is eternally real, and the senses and the mind, they exist in a subtle form, and they become active as the body matures. And this development is a real unfolding of karmic conditions. According to the Advaita view, only Brahman is ultimately real, and this body, senses, mind, and all these stages of development, they belong to avidya or ignorance. And according to this philosophy, the true self is unaffected witness of these changes. So the difference between both views, the core difference is that according to the Vaishnava understanding, there is a real soul with real faculties which become manifest in the course of time. And according to Advaita, this apparent individual experiencing is and the apparent development is within ignorance, goes on the imagination. And apart from this philosophical understanding, it's also good to see the spiritual implications of this philosophy, especially for those who are practicing celibate life, brahmacharya. And based on these teachings, this desire which arises is part of the development, and it's not essential nature of the soul. It implies that this sexual agitation, it comes when the body matures and when the senses become active, and these subtle impressions or samskaras, they become manifest. Which means that this desire is conditional. It is not intrinsic. It's not the real nature of the soul. And practically, this means that to live a celibate life, celibacy is not a suppression of the self. It's rather a regulation, and it's a regulation of the conditioned bodily impulses. And all those who practice celibacy, they should know that youth is a critical phase, spiritual stage, and it requires, it's a period which requires discipline, training, guidance, and structured life. Because if these sensory activities are unchecked, it will strengthen the karmic impressions. And if one lives a regulated life, it will weaken them. And therefore, all these traditional systems, they encourage very early training in brahmacharya. Another thing that we should know, and that it can be helpful, is that the attempts to control, they should be both gross and subtle. This purport and the verse, they suggest two-way interaction. On the one hand, the subtle desires, they influence the body, and on the other hand, the bodily stimulation strengthens subtle impressions. So therefore, celibacy may include both external restraint in terms of behavior and also internal purification in thinking, in thought, in imagination, in memory. Otherwise, if one tries simply to repress, this repression leads to, as explained, to dream activity and mental agitation. And also this moon metaphor, which is used, it leads us to the notion of detachment. Just as the moon is not affected by the darkness, in the same way the soul is not affected by bodily impulses. What creates disturbance is only the identification. So this, our spiritual practice shifts the identity from I'm this agitated body to I'm the witness, I'm the spirit soul, which is part and parcel and servant of the Supreme Lord, and my essence is spiritual. So it's very important that we have the right understanding of our identity, which is very helpful in overcoming the agitation of the senses and remaining steady in our spiritual practice. And the practical conclusion of this teaching is that the sexual energy is a state which is linked to the activation of material nature, and it can be, this energy, it can be redirected or sublimated into devotion and meditation, all this which comprises the spiritual practice. And then, as we said, celibacy becomes easier when the identity shifts from the body to the soul. So this verse is the one we read yesterday, the one we are reading today, and the others who follow, they provide very very nice philosophical understanding and basis on how to distinguish between our true nature and the coverings of the soul, and how to practically become able to control our nature, to control our senses, and to make steady spiritual advancement. So, thank you very much for your kind attention. If there is something you would like to add, or some reflections, or even some questions, please, you're most welcome.
So in terms of, for example, parents want to guide their children, especially on their transition, their child to teenage stage, what is the best approach?
As it was said, that the best approach is this training from the very beginning, as early as possible. The children should be taught about their real identity, so that they can grasp from the very early in their lives that they have an existence which is beyond uh, their physical gross and subtle body. And we may think that it is difficult for them to explain such deep and sophisticated philosophical viewpoint, but actually this is very natural, and the children, they can grasp, especially if they see the parents and those around them, how they behave and how they practically implement these teachings in their life. And the children may very easily take up these teachings. And we should be aware that, as this verse and purport explains, that even though the children, it will be said in the next verse tomorrow, that even if children, they appear to be innocent and very pure, it is only on the surface, because they carry within them, in their hearts, the impressions, the subtle impressions from previous lives, and at the time when the conditions are right, they will manifest naturally. So if they are trained from very early childhood, then they will be prepared for this change in the physical and subtle body, and this period, which is generally very difficult, and they experience these turbulent emotions and also physical agitation, they will be able, due to the good knowledge, the strong knowledge which is given to them by their parents and the scriptures, they will be able to pass through this phase more easily, and be able to distinguish themselves from the external development changes. As the Bhagavad Gita says in this famous verse, Dehinusmin yatadehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatadehantara pratir dirastatra namuheti. The soul undergoes these natural changes which are related to the body, like as boyhood, youth, old age, and finally death. But one who is dhira, who is very stable, very one who is dhira is not disturbed by these changes. So we should help our children to gradually come to this stage of being dhira, and not disturbed by these changes. And of course they need guidance, they need instruction, they need proper example by the parents. And also the Vedic system is structured in such a way that even if these desires are very strong and they cannot tolerate or suppress them, so there is a natural way of entering to Grihastha ashrama and then channeling these desires in a proper way in the service of Krishna and the devotees. So yes, the Vedic system is made in such a way that it facilitates the gradual development and advancement of the individual. So we can use all the help to make it easier for them to pass through this transition. And even if they experience some agitation and problems, we should know that this is stage, and it will pass. And if we give them the foundation of a good spiritual practice and also good attitude, good upbringing, they will carry with them all the beneficial training they have received, the love of their parents, and eventually they will overcome this no doubt difficult transition. Something else? Okay. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shiva Prabhupada ki jai.